All right, here we are. Oops, here we go. All right, here we are. Hopefully everything's working. A little bit of a check my audio. You wouldn't believe what I did the other day. I actually recorded over an hour of sharing people's emails with all you guys. And I went to throw it on the program. The audio, I hit the mute button on this damn microphone. Just about fell over. But it's working now. Just in time for my neighbor to flash up his backhoe again. All good. Now, got lots of going to get into and share with all the people today. Important words. But one important thing I want to share with you guys is Lieutenant Mark Bashaw. He's in contact with me a few times over the past few years since the COVID debacle went down. And he's a U.S. military man. And he stood up and he said, F you, I'm not getting the jab, but I'm not wearing a mask. And obviously he got, what happened to him? He got court-martialed, a whole bunch of nasty shit, and he just got his pardon. He didn't stop fighting. He stood up for what was right, and he just received his pardon. And he emailed me. Very proud of him. And he emailed me his copy of his pardon. Maybe I'll just put it. Maybe I'll put the. I'll try to remember to put this in the video. But anyways, I'm just saying. What a great thing to celebrate and share, right? A true, free human being who knows what's right and wrong stood up against the mass, the majority, and the dark side, and won. Congratulations, Mark. We're so happy. And so glad to have you here with us whenever you have time to be here. And that was super news when I received that email from Mark. Very, very, very excited for him. Yay! Gotta love it when the good guys win one, right? Now, searching in my phone, and realize there's a whole bunch of comment screenshots in here that need to be shared with all of you. So I'm going to get into that and get this out of here too. And I got some other things to share, but our last trail camera winner emailed me to say there's full-on city person who doesn't have any need for it, so we can throw it back in the pot and have it drawn again for somebody who could use it, right? Now, where am I? All right, hold on. If anybody's photo album with screenshots is anything like mine, tell you what. Where are we going? Scrolling down. I had it all here. I was all organized before I came out here this morning. Not that one. Hold on a minute. I'll get there. Gotta be kidding me. Come on. All right, here's one. I've read this before. I'm not sure if I read it aloud here or not, but I'm going to read it right now. This is from John Love. I have some truths that would be very beneficial, but you are so busy you must not have time. My lifelong hunting partner just passed on, and it's time to dump. I owe it to myself and him, but it can't be told in half an hour or 45 minutes babble, so if you ever get the time and you have my contact, and what I know would help you and this community out greatly. That's all I'm willing to say on this YouTube thing. Cryptids can be dispatched also if need be, so stay safe. I have your contact. I guess I'm going to have to search that name up. And if you're here listening, email me. All right? Sounds interesting. I've had a lot of people make some bold comments in the past about what they know and what we should know, but they don't share it. We see what comes. Now, this is from another YouTube comment from Fish Deep 59. I used to hunt in a swamp about a half mile from my house, and every morning about daybreak, I would hear a sound that was very similar to that sound. I would leave the woods every time I heard it, as you can imagine. I could even hear it from my house. But to my surprise, there was a small zoo about about a mile across the swamp that had African lions and tigers and all kinds of animals that you wouldn't think would be in the state of Georgia. After I went to the zoo to check it out, I invited my cousin to go hunting with me in the swamp. We got in the woods before daylight, and I took him to a place to sit and wait for squirrels at daylight, lol, knowing it wouldn't be long before he came out running to me. And then it happens. I hear the lions start, and it wasn't 3 minutes. I hear him running and saying something I won't repeat. Here, lol. I promise you that I couldn't catch up to him. Oh, sorry. To let him know it was lions from the zoo. When I got to finally tell him, he wouldn't believe me until I took him to the small zoo. He still wouldn't go hunting with me there again. But the video recording does sound a lot like the lions across the swamp. True story, lol. Rest in peace, cousin. We had fun. I'm not saying that's what the sound in the video is, but to me it was close. All right, there you go. Well, we have had a lot of people describe it as sounding like a lion, but a combo of something else too, right? When you hear that terrifying sound. Here's another one from David Woolsey. The hair on my neck and adrenaline jolt from hearing that recording tells me absolutely it's real. Or at very least, the deep guttural growling is. Yes, I've had it projected to me as a warning to stop, not another step. All while I'm staring in disbelief at a pair of eyes with red eye shine. The color wasn't what concerned me, it was the width between them. What had grabbed my attention to start with was what I knew was the screams of a territorial raccoon on the fight, but this didn't seem like a typical fight. There was more fear in its voice than I had ever heard. I shined in the direction of the noise, about 40 yards to the tree line across my driveway and along a 12-foot deep dry creek gully, and met those eyes 10 to 12 feet up in an oak tree. I didn't have a bright enough light to see a silhouette, just those eyes and the deep warning. And that deep warning. Then, as soon as the warning died away, the eyes looked down, and it leapt from the tree straight down into the rock bottom of the gully, with that raccoon once again screaming in fear. It was a heavy-footed landing, and an immediate bipedal run down that creek bed with strides longer than any human could match. The screams of the raccoon were silenced less than 50 yards into that exit, and instantly, most likely, from a snapped neck. That's when I knew, without any doubt, they are real and live among us. I've always held the opinion that if they meant to do me any harm, it would have happened long ago. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. This next one is from a viewer called Relaxation Defined. The one I called King Kong by my place that was fighting something in the woods had this sound mixed in. Still sounded more frightening than this sound you have here, but again, it was literally screaming / grunting / growling. And at a pitch so deep and loud, it sounded like I had a concert speaker right at my ear. I can tell you it's horrifying to hear any of the sounds loud. Here's another one from Mikey Kostelny. Steve, this is Mikey. Ebbets Pass from Big Trees State Park, about 12 miles south. Typo. But where I heard the screaming was north of Big Trees State Park, about 35 miles. Let's just say Highlands Lakes. There is a small creek between two lakes. Well, anyway, about 6 a.m. to 6:30 a.m., I was fishing in the dark brush because certain trout won't bite if they see you, but the screaming I heard was first some foot stomps, then the screams, then foot stomping. Then it seemed something else was larger behind whatever was screaming. So the screaming was not from the west, because the screaming I heard was like a woman being beaten and running for its life. But I was on the other side of the creek, and I started to walk fast back to the truck. And I did leave most of my fishing equipment, so I did hear something larger, basically stalking me. But I made it to the truck, and waiting for my uncle. He hadn't heard anything, and he was about 3 miles away. and absolutely no one else on the mountain. Just us. A real wild California mountain. Anyway, this screaming doesn't match what I heard that morning. My uncle called it a Bigfoot taking a kill from a cat, and the cat was giving warning to both of us. I believe this may be true, and that was the last time we ever separated during fishing or hunting. Trust me, these woods were fresh and wild when I was a kid. Now I'm 58 years old, and I still go there to hunt and fish. The areas are DX and X8. So, just look for Highland Lakes, and all the old-timers knew things, especially the loggers and the forestry and the fish and game. There are the blue lights and other amazing things. The Washoe and the Miwaks know these histories, plus the 49s. All right. I'm guessing you were talking about some First Nations community, possibly. Another one. Bo. Subscriber here. Steve, there was a fellow here from the Cowichan Valley who visually spotted 2 Sasquatch close to Mount Sicker, Mount Prevost area. When the reporter asked him what it was like, he said that as he watched them walk just inside the tree line, they barked or made a sound similar to a bark that was as loud as 200 dogs barking at the same time. I believe it was Czech TV report. I also remember that the witness said when he heard that sound, it was so loud he jumped in his truck and sped out of there. I could describe what you just played the same as what that witness described. All right, so that's on Vancouver Island, not too far from here. And there is a lot of things going on around those mountains, just above Duncan, British Columbia, Vancouver Island. Dwayne Hawley said, I grew up in the Honey Island Swamp. Currently live on the Jordan River, 16 miles to the east, Pearl River. I also had an encounter with my granddad as a 12-year-old boy running catfish boxes. A willow tree was shaking violently. My granddad called it a booger. There you go. We drove by that Honey Island Swamp sign when we were doing the road trip from Texas to Alabama. Looks like there's a lot of frickin' timber around there for sure. Now, did I get them all right? No, here's another one. These are going to be possibly various topics, right? Because I just got a whole bunch of comments that I guess were worthy of sharing in my phone here. Musclehead wrote in to say, I used ivermectin for the first time last month because I had stomach problems. Long story short, for once, I believe I had parasites and no more gastrointestinal problems now. I got the paste version. It was weird and gross taking it, but after a month of stomach issues, I didn't care. It works like a charm. I can finally eat normally again after a month and no bloated stomach 24/7. Yes. Good work. And thank you for being honest about it coming forward. A lot of people need to hear that. I took ivermectin just a few days ago. No shame in that one. It's an award-winning medicine. Anthony John said, I lived at Temperance Creek Lodge in Hell's Canyon for 6 months. 1 year. And I heard stories about the lady that worked there before my mom and I, and that she had seen a Sasquatch before, and that she was terrified of that place ever since. But I never got to see one nor see any signs of one. I wish I did. Debatable. Once you're there, I can tell everybody, sometimes you just wonder what it would be like to not have this knowledge, you know? What else have we got? Here's another one. I can't even read this. Mr. Ivan Chernigovsky. Ivan, it's all one word when it's a handle on the YouTube handle. Mr. Ivan Chernigovsky commented with, hey, from New Zealand. I'm in Auckland, our biggest city, and I got chased through the bush out Karamuta Valley, like 40 minutes from the CBD out past Hawaii. I was up at the waterfalls, and I could hear like kids' voices like a kindergarten, but there's nothing but bush out there. Then something hitting trees really hard. So I ran down the track back to the car park. All the time, something bipedal was pacing me like 20 feet out in the bush. Crunch, crunch, crunch. and made it to the car park, and the car, and whatever it was, hit a 30-foot punga tree, bracket, big-ass fern and bracket, and swayed back and forth. And there was no wind that day. And the other thing I noticed, it was dead quiet. No birds, no nothing. Not even the sound from the creek nearby. Then I stood there, and all the sounds came back like someone had turned the volume switch up again. I haven't been back there or done any more hiking. I'm part native, and whatever chased me out did it for a reason. To say, get out of here, and don't come back. For whatever reason. There you go, another one from NZ. You know what? I went out to Hast, West Coast, Southern Island, and had my bow, and I hiked up. I was randomly on that paved road parked, and I went for it and hiked up a creek bed to get back into the forest in there. You want to talk about thick jungle. Holy cow. And then you got the mountains. Yeah. It's funny how many people try to dictate that there's no Bigfoot in the UK and there's none in Australia or New Zealand. Well, we got the witnesses to prove it's fact. Jess Fassold commented with, I worked a 30-year career in timber management in Oregon. A lot of strange encounters, timber cruising before GPS. GPS makes it easy compared to traditional compass, rods, and hypsometers? Crazy encounter off of Seven Devils Road on the southern Oregon Coast Range in the early 1980s. I know these things exist, but billions of dollars in timber losses to protect these people's land, not going to happen. Just look at the protection given to salmon, steelhead, spotted owl, and marbled murrelet. The logging industry will never say these things exist and fire anyone that does. My grandfather had a fruit tree farm along the Columbia River. He told me these people migrate to the fruit trees every year during the fall. They're just there when the fruit is ripe and then take off to the north up in the North Cascades. Anyway, I think these people go to where they can exploit the natural resources and food is plentiful. Maybe, when they're here for sure. Is it money and timber? What do you guys think? You know what I think. I'm absolutely 100% convinced it's not about money. Well, I guess in the long run it could be about money, right? But it's about our true history. It's spiritual. It's about us, our true history, and what we should be doing with our lives, I would imagine. And much more. Vince Veloci? Vince Veloci. It's all one word on the handles, right? I'm from Australia, but my grandfather encountered a Bigfoot in Sicily a few times. No way. As told by, because we just had Italy chimed in the other day. As told by my mother, he was a police officer or guard. On more than one occasion, he was called out to deal with terrified people complaining about a large monster that lived in a tunnel. This monster was covered in red hair, was twice the height of a man, and would throw rocks and scream at people. My grandfather made a point of saying, if you leave it alone, it will leave you alone. My grandfather had no reason to make this up, and he was teased by the family over the story, yet he always maintained it was true. People are funny, right? Teased about the story, said how many people. Blake Bell wrote in with, hi, Steve and the How to Hunt community. My family experience happened in the fall of 2023. It was between 9 and 10 p.m. and we were laying in bed. Me, my wife, and my son, 7 years old, tucking our son in for bed. We had just pulled the comforter over our heads, and I said that I was with my favorite people in the world. Our bedroom was blinds that were pulled down and blackening curtains on all the windows. 2 windows facing east and one on the north side. The flash of light was bright enough to penetrate all those windows coverings and a bedsheet / comforter. Let me read that again. A flash of light was bright enough to penetrate all those window coverings and the bedsheet and the comforter. I first thought it was normal and passed it off, thinking it was a car with its headlights going by in the street. It flashed again, and I immediately threw off the covers to reveal a ball of light moving from the east windows to the north window. I jumped out of bed next to the north window to follow it. It went through the north window. I reached out and pulled the curtain over and pulled the blind down to see it since it vanished out the window. At that moment, a lamp located next to the bed from where I jumped up turned on. We all saw it. Definitely it had intelligence. And I wonder if we summoned it unknowingly. Merely by all of us having the same thought. There you are. Thank you for being a rational voice to this and other related topics. We live on a wondrous planet that deserves respect and gratitude. To you, Sarah, and your kin/furry ones, best wishes for prosperity and joy. And same to you. I appreciate your input. Your share of that bright light. The only bright lights... Well, I had some weird lights in my trail camera hand years back. Remember that one? And then about a mile and a half from there is where I recorded 2 miles. Mile and a half. I recorded those bright frickin' lights way up in the mountain. I video recorded it. And then all of a sudden there was 2. One disappeared, and they were bright. Probably minus 30. 4:30 in the morning, whatever it was. 5 in the morning. That would be pretty unnerving, having a bright light in your house going through walls. Would it not? No thanks. Huh. Private do not share. All right, I'll have to look back at that one. This next email is titled Red. Quick mind speak telepathy story. Steve, sorry this isn't a Bigfoot story. All good. But I've heard you talk about the mind speak. I just want to tell a story that happened to me in 2011. I came home from the night shift. It was still dark outside, about dawn. I threw a load of clothes in the dryer, set it for 60 minutes, and I went to go lay down. Now let me be clear, I was not asleep, but I had my eyes closed. And I got this intense feeling I was being watched. I opened my eyes, and about 2 feet from my face is another face looking at me. What? All of a sudden, it got this evil grin and telepathically mind spoke to me. Quote, "Yeah, I know you can see me," end quote. And this is not my voice. Like when you talk to yourself in your mind. And I was now in fight or flight mode. No doubt. I jumped back away from it and it slowly started floating upwards and back towards the wall where it went through the wall. The whole time I was watching it, I could see it. I could also see through it. I ran into the room where it went through the wall, which was the laundry room, and I didn't see anything. The dryer still had 45 minutes left, so only 15 had passed. This thing was just a head, and the only way to explain it was that it looked almost like an evil jack-o'-lantern, and its skin was similar to the burnt flesh of Freddy Krueger. What the hell? That's absolutely creepy. I don't watch horror movies, and I wasn't looking for this event to happen because of something I'd watched or whatever. Anyway, that's my, quote, mind speak, end quote, story. And it was real and creepy to hear that in my head. Thanks, Shane. That's a holy shit story, Shane. No, thanks. So many people brave people come forward with some of the most unbelievable shit, but you guys see the pattern in there? How many people have come forward saying something was in the room at the foot of the bed, sitting on the bed, hovering above them, going through a wall, going through the window, going through the door, down the hallway, through another room, out the wall. Only takes three witnesses to put somebody in jail for life, right? And we got hundreds of those. I just hope it doesn't happen to me. Heavy breathing, question mark. Long story. I've been rewriting this and proofing it, but I keep on laughing while I listen to you with all the similarities that you keep reading. I'm glad it's only been a week or so because I'd never get this done, lol. Just means I'm in the right place again. Steve, please note this. My first draft submission was around the early 2000s to another personally interested party, and has never been published to my knowledge with or without my permission. Steve, you do have my permission, and yes, you may read or publish as you feel fit, but please keep my email info private. Thanks, love your show. Remember, quote, the student finds the teacher, end quote, from LP. It all started this way. I decided to relate this experience I did have late August 1985 near Red Feather Lakes, Colorado. I was with a girl that was a new in-law of my friend I was visiting, and we decided to go out to have a couple beers and kill some time because everyone else was busy working, and we were bored. We found a lone lumber road to go down, but the beer part never happened. We no sooner got to the end of this road and got out when it all came about. Now, I must give you some history, which, being of an open mind, you should appreciate. I had in the past studied a martial arts system that was what we referred to as an internal style of Kung Fu. We used meditation exercises to build Qi, the life force, and aid in the true reason of real fighting styles, which is one of course, health, awareness, confidence, and, to put it simply, not to fight in the first place. The trees were cut 6 to 8 inches off the ground and only 8 to 12 inches in diameter and just looked like a nice, quiet, peaceful place to sit back and get to know someone. Well, that didn't happen. The road just ended and turned into the forest it was. We walked about 40 feet to the left to a nice spot and found a fallen tree to sit on. The 2 trees outside the cut area, just 2 trees outside the cut area because we were not going to sit on 8 to 12 inch stumps. To the right of my truck was a small valley that went north of our parking spot and was probably 60 to 80 feet deep here. We could easily see the other side of the draw, 120 to 150 feet away, but the hill tapered off comfortably and level on our side, and the trees were not thick here, so we could see into them maybe 80 feet beyond the clear-cut stumps. I've been talking to her about the meditation/Qi stuff, and she seemed interested. So I was going to show her an example of feeling the Qi flow that was created by doing a standing meditation exercise that I learned from a grand master I had the luck to meet years ago, and yes, maybe I was trying to impress her just a little bit, but I always enjoy the amazement that people get out of something that I have learned to be just a normal part of ourselves and the world that is always around us. This feeling I'm referring to can simply be a warmth or soft pressure felt radiating from one body to another, just like by passing a hand over someone's arm. This can be used for healing each other. Sorry if this seems anticlimactic, but this is what happened. I stood there holding my hands the right way, doing the breathing the right way, and relaxing the right way, when the wind started to pick up, swirling above my head at the top of the trees about 30 feet above. I heard this and stayed in the meditation to see if it would just go away, but it did not. I then came out of the meditation to see if it would stop, and it did. I looked up and I could see the wind slowing down, and this is the moment we both heard it. A very deep, slow breathing sound started just as abruptly as the wind was stopping it. It was really weird, and I'm not talking about a light panting. I should have been able to feel the hot breath in my neck. It sounded so close. Now this really kind of scared me. For one thing, I realized my 12-gauge Mossberg was in the truck. I asked the gal with me, "Do you hear that?" She said, yeah, I was just going to ask you that. So not wanting to sound scared or anything, I just said, "I think we ought to just leave here now." I said as cool as I could muster. So I asked her to grab the six-pack and go straight to my old 72 F-250 4x4 truck and get in from this side. The driver's door was closest, and I didn't want her going around the other side that I couldn't see and slide over. I'll be right there. I think I may have even asked her to lock the other side. Well, a good sport she was, grabbing the bag of beer, she walked right to the truck, got in, and didn't say a word. This whole time I was trying to figure out which way the sound was coming from, and when I said it was a breathing sound, I meant it was as if it was right behind us and coming out of a throat, at least as big around as a baseball, slow and steady. I was sure I was going to turn around to see a big cat or a bear sizing us up for a not-so-tiny meal, but there was nothing there. That was actually a bit troubling also. As the sound quieted down, I basically decided to start putting out some really friendly vibes. And I'm talking really nice guy, not gonna make no trouble kind of stuff. So my palm facing outward and slowly turning my body while projecting, I truly hoped, good energy all around, I still could not tell where exactly the source had been. I could see nothing from any direction. It was very strange. Thank God we never saw it. It was quite unnerving. The whole time, no other sound was heard. No footsteps, no rustling of the foliage or leaves, nothing. It was real, if you know what I mean. Intentionally quiet. I was comforted that it had been going away from us, and the foreboding feeling let up a bit. I walked towards the front of the truck to look over the other side of the draw, but still saw and heard nothing, except for one single crack of a stick being stepped on far away from us. I was always a good Boy Scout and understand the outdoors, having hiked up Mount Whitney via the mountaineering trail, which is straight up the east side pass next to the sheer eastern rock face, all while wearing my trusty Kelty backpack, as well as Mount San Jacinto. And San Gorgonio or Horgonio? Gorgonio? Near Palm Springs area. Very nice hikes. Not much danger if you can stay on your feet. Again, the fact that we should have been able to feel that breath. Should have been able to feel that breath on us as loud as it was. I cannot forget what the hell it was I've been trying to figure out ever since. In the back of my mind, I did entertain the paranormal aspects, but without actual resources of experienced information, I just had to seek justification for this myself. But now I have the internet. Like I said, I've had some training in ways that most people don't have any way of comprehending. To me, it's just another wonder that I've been lucky enough to witness. And as for the girl, I never really got to have those beers with her as we originally planned, and it was a slow, quiet drive back the few miles to my friend's place, no doubt. Excuse me. Update, November 20th, 2024. Thanks for the Canadian road trip video. It was very nice. Excuse me. I now live in South Dakota. Excuse me. The more flat eastern side, so I appreciated the weather. Or should I say I respect it. And at the time of the story, I lived in San Diego, California. Excuse me. Enjoying the ocean surf and the good snorkeling, etc., but have escaped since '07, when it got really stupid and expensive. And after a great life as a U.S. merchant marine engineer, down below, never seen, no tan, my longtime bosun used to call us Morlocks because we only came up for feeding like in the H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. I'm now 65, and I've been clean and sober for 37 plus years, and I've learned to ask others. Reach out for information and guidance. I lost a shipping career due to a bad slip and fall down the stairs. Ladders, they are called, onto the deck plates and into the engine room at '02 and snapped my left leg/foot off at the ankle. Ugh. By the way, I fly just like a rock at 5'11", 260. No more shipping or anything for me. My leg was reattached and rebuilt. Ew. But I've been disabled ever since with limited function ability. But I stayed sober, no problem. I certainly cannot hike anymore, but I thank God for Jeep Wrangler, pickup, and the Harley-Davidson Electra Glide. I couch with horsepower. So anyway, years later, I crossed paths with what you call a medicine woman online and asked if she would be interested in hearing my experience. Excuse me. So for she professed to have an intimate knowledge of these forest people and their modus operandi, spelling, since she was a small child and was raised to be a healer, etc. So I figured it wouldn't hurt. She had mentioned that she has active ongoing communication with a Sasquatch group, i.e. clan, including the, I guess, alpha male, of whom is also protective to her because, as you know, there is good and bad. People are people wherever you go, and women can get jealous. Enough said, haha. I figured that was all pretty cool, and she seemed honest enough, so I sent her the first basic draft of this story. Back in 2006-ish. A while later, maybe a few days, she contacted me and said she had some questions for me. This is where it gets even weirder. She first relayed the message that after some counsel with them, I was okay in their book, to put it bluntly, but the big guy was wondering how I was able to open a portal. What? Wow, I didn't see that one coming. She was, of course, very interested in this also. So I explained in more detail the internal style of Kung Fu that I learned many years before and told her about the meditations I have learned. This put her more at ease with me, and she then understood what may have happened and started to talk quite freely to me about the mystery of the hairy people, saying they are basically protectors of the earth, but they can be moody just as we can be. Protectors of the earth from who or what? Because I don't see them doing anything. She's one of my favorite people that I've been blessed to blend journeys with. And years ago I was instructed that although I may have been shown how to find a door, it's my choice to step through it, although I never knew it'd be so literal. I've had many teachings and suffered many lessons, even gone to jail for doing what I knew was right. Bracket, note you cannot defend yourself in California, end bracket, what the F. I'm still on most good lists, but I know that my friends picked me. I know that my friends picked me, not I them, including the wonderful medicine lady. We still sit and talk, and she helps me heal from getting older and living through it. I've been around most of the world by ocean and many times by air, and never stopped learning. I've even spotted a 60-plus foot white serpentine creature in South China Sea and called the captain over to look, but neither one of us could identify that one. I've seen ghosts, and I've met two people that were told by psychic friends separately that they would meet me. That's kind of trippy. P.S. I actually married one of them, LOL. I don't do many meditations anymore because I found that the awareness you gain can be too much at times, so I gave it a rest. Besides, I can actually call on it when needed anyway. But my medicine woman stated that I should start again. Meditations really do work. Even coming across your videos proves the truth that everything is connected. I never thought I would actually hear from someone else about the breathing anomaly, but I have at least 2 times in the past weeks right here. Thanks. Also, I don't know if this has happened to anyone else, but in elementary school, the Board of Education sent out a counselor that pulled me out of class in the 5th grade twice a week to give me extensive testing, like IQ stuff. Nobody else I heard of got this, and I really never knew what they were for at that time, until after high school when a classmate's mom brought it up to me because she used to work at the Board of Education and told me that my testing was so high that they really didn't know how to teach us. We're what they labeled us then as gifted. But I just figured I must have cheated because I didn't really do that good in school and pretty much glided right through it just fine. Although I always have been gifted in mechanics my whole life, and that's been good. I've also been spiritually healed by the laying of hands and prayer, with immediate results, I will add. When I was a 10-year-old child, with a kinked/locked-up neck by an old gentleman who was a pastor/holy man for sure, that did missionary work for orphans and collected old clothes and bacon grease/lard for those in Tijuana, Mexico. Very pious, but nice. Excuse me. I also had broken bones and knitted back together in 2 weeks instead of months during my martial arts training. That really freaked out my doctors when I told them about the Chinese Shifu, the Kung Fu, who healed me by what he called bone growth stimulation. They all told me to keep him around because we're just scratching the surface of what healing can really be done. I agree. That happened twice with me. I've heard footsteps through the gravel around a fifth-wheel camper that I lived in, but never ever saw anyone out there in San Diego County in the hills, east of Ramona. It sounded like someone was just pacing around outside, but nobody was. We were adjacent to an Indian reservation, though? Question mark. I do believe that these healing experiences can actually invoke changes to the human existence and graces us with actual awareness and heightens our reception of outside information and reactions. Like lightning, a spark inside of us. Spidey senses also being one example. I know for a fact that meditations can do this too. I was actually kidnapped at gunpoint once by some addict type near Dewells that decided to rob the house I happened to be at. But by using my training and cooperating, of course, I was able to hand back his .357 pistol he gave me when he decided I really was a nobody. As I had stated to him earlier when he asked who the hell I was. Yeah, it was pretty strange, but I'm happy the way it worked out. He even gave me back my wallet and $10 as he dropped me off into an unfamiliar neighborhood 20 miles from my home. Strange shit's always happened to me, but it sure makes life interesting. Now I know the detectives did not believe it either, but I don't have that good of an imagination, honest. So they put me on a watch list, go figure. So Steve, I cannot think of a single reason that a Sasquatch or anything else couldn't decide to occasionally drop by and take a look around, because what can I say? I sure like it here too. It sure is not boring to me. I stand by my original closing. I will swear to anything you pick out. This is absolutely true. It all did happen and more. Thanks for bringing it out again. Sincerely. All right, man. Gotcha. All right, well, there's a lot mentioned in there for some to take from or leave or relate to or chime in and comment on, so. But the breathing part of the neck, we know the one that reminds me of one incident that somebody wrote in that I not always, but haven't forgot, was the guy that was up in the tree stand and something hawked a loogie onto the back of his neck in the dark, waiting for light to come out. Ugh. And, he didn't want to spin around. Or he did spin around, didn't see it, I forget. All I just remember is, I just picture something huge standing right behind your neck and spitting on you when you're in your tree stand deer hunting, or anywhere, for that matter, would really, really suck. Took me back to the mad memory. Now, what else we got here? This next one's titled, Kentucky Sasquatch, question mark. Hello, Steve. I'm writing from Oldham County, Kentucky. I love your channel. I'm watching for about a year. I never thought much of Sasquatch and who or what they are until things started happening near my fiance's home. He has a house that backs up to several miles of woods. There's a very large back deck that comes off the second level of his house where I love to hang out in the evenings, year-round. I smoke and drink out there and watch the wildlife and look at the stars. Several times I've felt an oppressive fear for no reason that I knew of. I would try to get my dog to come outside with me and she would refuse. Other times she would hang out with me out there. And a very strange incident happened in February 2021. I'd gone in and out repeatedly one Saturday night with nothing weird. And when I went out again, all hell broke loose. I usually have my mag flashlight in my hands to scope out animals in eye shine. I opened the door and stepped out onto the deck, and something big made a large ruckus near the garbage cans at the bottom of the deck. I aimed the flashlight thinking I'd see a raccoon or possum, but I saw a large black curved body. Excuse me. I saw a large black curved body come off the side of the middle of a tree trunk, about 15 feet from the ground. This happened in about 3 seconds. My brain was trying to wrap around what the F just happened. Then this crazy noise came out of the woods from the opposite side of the back deck, about 100 to 150 yards away. I told my guy it was a cacophony. Discordant noises happening simultaneously. It sounded like a herd of gorillas grunting and huffing with a flock of wild turkeys or something shrieking all at the same time. I aimed the light and nothing. It lasted for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then just silence. I started questioning my sanity. I booked it inside, and my guy looked at me and asked, "What's wrong?" After relaying my experience, I really felt like I was purposefully drawn away from whatever was near the deck and the trees, to the noise in the woods. And a week later, my guy, a former police detective who really doesn't like anything paranormal, said, quote, "Well, I think I heard something big in the woods too," end quote. He had heard something large and bipedal when he was getting in his truck. Just thought I'd share. Carol from Kentucky. Feel free to share my name and location. All right, there you go, Carol. I wonder who else is going to chime in from that area. I wonder. All right, one more, and then I am going out and getting the boat ready to rock and roll. This is titled About Not Being Believed. Hello, Steve. I just caught that I was using the wrong email before and I sent you several other emails about Edgar to your ProGuy66 email. Sorry about that. I haven't caught your actual one until today. Asleep at the wheel all this time, I guess, LOL. So I'm sending this to you on both the emails you mentioned. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. Thank you first and foremost for being you, straight shooter, honest spokesperson for truth. Makes folks feel so much better when they can share what they know happened to them. This is a long one. Sorry, and the Bigfoot dreams, nightmares part is only at the bottom, so fair warning. But I wanted to address the skeptics in this one and those who are suffering, as I've tasted the bitter dose, several times myself. Was just sitting here watching your latest video and agreeing 100% about the people in control having their sway over everything we learn, see, hear, and basically believe about Bigfoot, but also about everything else. I could go on another tirade like I did in 3 emails previous to you, but this time I'll spare you my theories on that angle. It's a very deep rabbit hole. I simply want to share a couple of things from my past as a young commercial fisherman in Alabama and Louisiana in the 70s and 80s. Over my 14 plus years fishing and shrimping, there were several times I was not believed, and it was not even a Bigfoot sighting. I once unintentionally caught 2 enormous hammerhead sharks right off the beach at Fort Morgan, Alabama. I was alone in a 20-foot wooden skiff, and I was using a gill net to catch Spanish mackerel. No camera, of course. One was a foot short the length of my skiff, at 19 feet, and the other was about 17 feet long. They rammed my net and got badly tangled, and I had to cut it to pieces with my pocket knife to get them out. They were unharmed, by the way, as I cleared them of the netting. I was afterwards met with some skepticism, as no one had ever heard of or caught large hammerhead in our area, let alone monsters like that, especially right near the beach. They said hammerheads don't get much over 10 feet in those waters. It hurts to be called mistaken or an exaggerator, a liar basically. Let it beat up and roll off. Oh, and the Gulf waters were smooth as glass that night. No sounds coming through. Water could be heard through the skiff bottom. One can hear the sound of an outboard prop from a mile away. Very common thing to hear on a dead calm night. A faint buzzing. However, when I mentioned that I could hear the shark's sonar buzzing up through the bottom of my skiff as they approached, folks got skeptical. Yes, I heard these monster sharks approaching from at least 100 yards away, and they were coming fast. There were no boats in sight, but the sound was due east of me. Not way off somewhere. What the hell? Hammerheads are not supposed to be equipped with sonar, right? First I've ever heard. People are going to be wondering about that statement. Only porpoises and whales, maybe, but I know what I heard. And it was relatively loud and growing louder by the second. The buzzing sound ended abruptly, though, the second they impacted my net, like you flipped a switch. Silence now, only the net plunging deep and splashing sounds as I held onto the cork line. Strange as hell, but I will sign an affidavit any time that it happened exactly this way. Another time, I was alone again in 87 or 88 on a 55-foot trawler. Yes, in lean months, we worked with no deckhands. On a sunny fall afternoon in a starboard troll. I caught the biggest stingray, not a manta ray, that I've ever heard of, let alone witnessed. The trawler I ran had a 15-foot beam amidship, and when I dumped this ray out onto the deck, it almost spanned the width of the boat. It was a good 13 feet across, wingtip to wingtip. It was very old and scarred, too, with thick wingtips. No camera again. How I regret that. We never carried cameras on the boats back then, but again I was snickered at a bit and told I was exaggerating. As such, huge red stingrays that size were not believed to exist. The biggest one reported was 5 to 6 foot max, that other captains had caught over the many years in Mobile Bay, Alabama. They considered that a whopper. All that to say, although I've never seen a Bigfoot outside of my dreams, I know how the sting of disbelief feels. I saw an enormous UFO once in 84, 85. Best I can recall, I made the mistake of telling my 2 closest friends who normally had my back. You've been watching way too much TV, Mark. You must have dreamed that. They wanted to believe me, but their faces and body language indicated that they were having a really hard time accepting it. That was understandable, as I was having trouble believing my own eyes that night before this enormous craft moved extremely slow out over the bay. This lasted for at least 10 minutes. It hovered above the pine tree line, which was about 100 yards from me. Again, no camera handy, nor it would have occurred to me as I was transfixed. A large anvil head thunderstorm flashed with lightning out over Mobile Bay that night, silhouetting the craft numerous times. It was every bit the length of 2 747's nose to tail, lit up all the way around with huge, square, light panels of some sort. To this day, I've only told this to a small handful of people, and it's so difficult to tell things like that due to the inevitable ridicule. As far as Bigfoot goes, I can only say I used to have some very terrifying nightmares of Sasquatch slow stalking me back in the 70s. This went on for months and almost every night. Scary stuff. It felt very real. Long dreams, too, seemed to drag on half the night. I barely knew what a Bigfoot was at the time, is what was strange. Not on my radar back then. He's captivated my imagination ever since, though. You can be sure of that. Maybe one is trying to communicate with me. Who knows? Anyway, best to you and your listeners. I'm so glad everyone's sharing these stories and getting it off their chests. Take care of yourself. Stay safe and those grizzlies emerge out there. Thanks, Mark T. near Charlotte, North Carolina. Appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, being disbelieved kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Especially the UFO thing. I think so many people I know, myself, we've seen them. We've seen the weird things in the sky. It is what it is. There's not much you can do after. Like I said one time, my friend and I were sitting there on top of a mountain, Northeast Rockies, British Columbia, middle of frickin' nowhere, blue bomber, sunny day. And there was that pewter-colored ball just sitting there. Nothing to compare the size to, no clouds in the sky, nothing, just sitting there. We kept an eye on it, and I laughed at him and said to my friend right away, "Oh, now what? You just go home and tell somebody saw a metallic-like ball in the sky." End of story. Done deal. Nothing you can do about it. But we saw it. Then was it 3 years ago, hunting by myself in northern BC at nighttime, my one friend was with me. It might have been the same time I got the knife back. And we're sitting there, clear skies, watching the Starlink satellites and shit going by, but then all of a sudden there's about 15 or 20 of these lights going all different directions, ripping around. And that actually made me nervous. I took note of actually feeling nervous for the first time ever, looking in the sky thinking, holy shit, I don't know what those are, but I sure hope they don't come down to us. I remember another time when I was guiding in camp, my guide partner would get 2 new hunters every couple of weeks and be like, tell Sasquatch story tonight. Tell your stories tonight. I always said story time, right? And I'll never forget this one hunter goes, Southern accent, he goes, "Man, y'all probably believe in UFOs too, don't you?" I'll never forget the way he slurred that at me. It's kind of like, really? Holy shit. You're about as smart as a bowling pin. Anyway, moving along. Sorry, you guys. More about Kentucky Wildman. Hey, this is Trish again. My mom passed away about a year ago, and I have no more aunts and uncles living. But anyway, I went and talked to some of my cousins about the story. They all said certain things I didn't remember, so here it is. I guess this is a follow-through email from a while back. It was marked as unread. It happened up a holler called Beach Fork. It was my grandma's uncle's daughter. She went missing from the garden they had on a hillside. A lot of people in the holler knew of the wild man. Sometimes old coal miners would have to cross Beach Fork to get to work, and the wild man would throw rocks and scare them so much that they started leaving it their lunches. Crazy. I guess to pass through without trouble. But anyway, that's where my grandma's aunt was taken from. The wild man had taken her, and they had a baby, and she was bathing the baby down by the creek. They had heard a humming sound that sounded like the girl, so when they got there, they seen her, and then all hell broke loose. It sounded like a dozer coming through the woods. The wild man came out screaming, grabbed her arm. As she broke away, the wild man grabbed the baby and killed it because it wouldn't come back. She wouldn't come back. They ran for their lives, and Grandma said her aunt was never the same after that. She never married or had any children. Sorry I couldn't get any more information on the story, but I do know that my grandma would never lie about something like that. She didn't like outside people knowing about it. She used to say that people would say her family was crazy. I just want to share her story here because she can't. I never felt safe telling anyone about it, but you're different. And she would have loved to tell you her story. But thanks again for listening. Trish Cornett from Kentucky. I did read that article. Well, I remember that incident, reading it a long time ago, I guess. I'm going to have to mark this as look into and find all those emails. That's like a horror movie. A horror movie experience, right? That's all we got from that one. One more. Nice little plane flying by right over the house. Pitt Lake / River / Northern Washington State, Mount Baker area. I do not care if you use my name. I'm not much of a typist, and I never went to college for an English degree. My father's side came from England to Canada in the 1800s. I was later told most of my family were born in the St. Mary's Hospital in New West, where my father later tore down that hospital with a wrecking ball. Irony. My grandfather joined the Canadian Navy, who, in his words, said they were scattered and mismanaged, so he came to the States, joined the U.S. Navy, and his job was to transport troops from New York to England. He mentioned the trip over. He had never seen so many men seasick in his life. Some had never seen the ocean. After the war, he purchased equipment and started clearing roads for the province for logging. My father, growing up, even had a pet black bear which always laid on the equipment, and they had to wake my father up as a child to get him off the machinery. My grandfather talked about buying a 30-foot liveaboard and going up the Pitt River to the lake and seeing creatures standing in the water where a man could not stand over the water. Would be over where okay, it's broken up. Seeing creatures standing in the water where a man could not stand because the water would be over their head. Back in the 70s, my parents had a Studebaker bus, and my father worked for a logging company in northern Washington State. And a creature one night came and rubbed the bus as a boulder was rubbing against it. In the morning, there were no tracks in the soft gravel sand. She mentioned that the smell was something she will never forget, and they were 14 miles from a paved road. This is not their first encounter. There was a lot of activity in one area I know about, just hard to get to now. In the 80s, a sheriff down here came to a man's house from a call, and a man was torn apart limb by limb as a grizzly did the damage, but here we only have black bears. He reported it was an animal who killed him, so we do not have the crazies come out and flood the area with stupidity. I live in the mountains on acreage, and I've never seen one, but I have placed Rubbermaid bins in various spots when camping that had my gear in it. Last summer, one was picked up and moved 100 feet on a ridge, and no chew marks, and all items were not tampered with. Ever since logging has happened in my area, a lot of animals are displaced, making a bottleneck for animals to move back into Canada. I do know of an old road that is an access point. Thankful you do. As an old saying I was told long ago, paranoia is a sign of heightened awareness. If you're ever down south, I'll buy you dinner. Robert Arthur Price. Okay, appreciate it, Robert. Cool little chunk of history. Torn limb from limb. Bears and cats don't do that. Wild dogs do. Wolves do. I've shared that information with all you guys here before, especially grizzly bear. The grizzly bears don't shred a body with limb from limb. Anything. They don't do it. They'll kill you, and if they want to eat you, they'll drag you into some cover and bury you. Let you ferment, feed on you, bury you back up again so the birds don't clean you up, and come back and finish your ass. Black bears will kill and eat part of a human, portions of it, and they can. I watched a bear cover one of my old deer kills one time in the timber, and the sucker actually went and broke some branches off a little pine tree and put them on top, dragged them over to the deer. Full-on bear did it. Seeing the bear, seeing the tracks, bit of snow, but never moved the kill, and it wasn't a big miss. And when you come across a wolf kill, everything's all over the place, right? Just like dogs in the backyard with a stuffy toy. Same with dogs. When dogs annihilate something, everything's shredded all over the place. But I'm not saying a dog did that to the human being. I don't think I've ever heard of a dog or wolves shredding a human being, every single limb from limb in my life. But there you go. The Pitt River, it's always been there's all sorts of crazy ass shit going on in the Pitt River. That whole circle of land. If you were to go Vancouver to Squamish to Whistler to Pemberton, hang a right, Mount Currie, and then go all the way down the lake to Harrison. That whole big noose. If you really think you really need something weird to happen, just go get a helicopter and get dropped off right in the middle. That's all you got to do. All right? That's all you got to do. Anyway, I better get going. I really got to figure out this live feed thing in the boat tonight, I hope, and maybe pull it off tomorrow. I've tried to get the flat setting for the dish, and it won't. It keeps telling me I got to be online to do it. Well, I was online with the app doing it, and they kept on saying you can't do this without being online. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Anyway, I'm going to get ripping. Maybe, hopefully, I might be live tomorrow morning all day long. You never know. We'll see. Share my story at howtohunt.com. I haven't a clue what's open available for fishing. Sarah's got that at bookit at howtohunt.com. You know the drill. Everything you need or curious about through me is on the website, howtohunt.com. All right? But share your truth. Get it out. And I'll be back later.